Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
Greg Warren, how you doing today, man?
Hey, Jared, how's it going?
Great, man. Great. So you're back home in St. Louis. You said you just finished up a long week on the road.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I was in like 5 different cities last week, and it was pretty stupid, Jared. I think I probably should have said no to a couple of those gigs, man.
You have a hard time saying no? I mean, now that things are kind of opening back up, or kind of just, fun.
I mean, I love doing comedy, and I don't take it for granted anymore after the pandemic. So if it sounds like a fun show, or if it sounds like a show that I'm going to make a lot of money at, and I had a little bit of both. I had some shows that were lucrative, and then shows that I was mostly doing because I sort of in love with my new material, so I wanted to get it out there. But it was just a lot of traveling, and that was 40-year-old me would have been fine with that, but 50-year-old me is regretting it this morning.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? Father Time's undefeated. So for those that don't know, obviously you're a comedian, but you have a wrestling background.
Yeah.
All-American at Mizzou, right?
Yeah, but a long time ago, I was in 1991. So yeah, 30 years ago.
That's still pretty darn cool. So I guess, what's your first wrestling memory?
My first one?
Yeah.
I remember my dad was a coach, and I remember him taking me to practice. He was coaching junior high back then, and I remember just like him, I would go to practice, and then one day he was like, wrestle that kid, and I think it was, I don't know what it was, and then
Were you in the fire?
Yeah, I got pinned, I think, and I thought it was funny, I didn't I was probably 5 years old at the time or something. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I think around 7 or 8, maybe I started getting where I knew, like, you need to try to win, and you need to try to execute
more
technique,
seriously.
and yeah, and I remember like winning and being happy, and losing and being sad, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So he was your junior high and high school coach? He moved up with you?
He was my high school coach. Yeah. I mean, he was effectively my coach. I mean, I had coaches. I had a guy named Gary Lake, who was my little league coach. And, there was a lot of coaches around me in little league, but my dad was, always a big part of it. And then in high school, yeah, he was my coach. Yeah.
Right. So,
and then in college, I think he tried to be my coach for a little while, and then step back, and that was really kind of cool. And my dad did a nice job of, I have some memories. I think maybe it was my sophomore year. I was at the NCAA tournament, and I was wrestling Brian Dolph.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Dolph, who was, the guy was,
I
think most people
still is.
Most people thought, most people knew what the outcome of that match was going to be, but, I got in the, and I remember, I don't know, I was just like nervous and scared. I'm not sure I had the best mental, I would do it differently mentally, but, I was fighting and battling and wrestling with him. And I remember hearing my dad in the stands, and it was all just encouragement. It wasn't coaching. It wasn't, I care a lot about the outcome of this. It was just coaching and encouragement. It was just encouragement. And it was really, I'll never forget that, and I think that he was always encouraging as my coach too, but there was a difference at that time. He was like a fan, and it was really, I felt like, oh, he's got my back here. I'm in a really horrible situation. he's got my back.
Yeah. Lining up against B Dolph, man. That's a tall.
Yeah. It's funny. You get to my age, like, I can tell you, like, all the really like good guys that I lost to, you know. I beat a couple of good ones, but but I can tell you a lot, people are more impressed, like, oh, you wrestled that guy? I'm like, yeah, I wrestled. I can give you a whole list of guys that I wrestled that you would know their names, and
It was
I
a quick,
lost
or
to
it was a quick
all of
match,
them.
right?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So, yeah, that's a big piece, right? Having a dad that kind of understands. I was pretty blessed. My dad, I had 3 younger brothers, but he knew exactly when he needed to step back and be no longer a coach. All right. He's like, I'm gonna be dad. And that was the best thing that he ever did. And it was pretty cool to see his self-awareness, and it worked out for us, I guess,
Yeah. Was he your high school coach?
No, he did it through youth. And once we
Okay.
got to middle school, he was like, and actually my uncle was my high school coach.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
actually he's been to one of your shows, him and my cousin.
Oh, really?
Maybe 2000. Shoot, I don't even know. It was up in Cleveland there, front row with their headgears on. I'm sure you get that a lot
Oh,
now.
wow, man.
I'm sure you get that a
There's
lot.
a great club, probably up at Hilarities in Cleveland.
Yeah. But he was my
place
high
is
school
awesome.
coach. So it was still a family thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That would be interesting if it was like your uncle, because it's
Yeah.
not your dad. So you got, it's a little different, I bet.
We had a good group. So was Mizzou the logical choice then, or is that just kind of what the plan?
Well, my first year I didn't go to Mizzou. I went to West Point. I went to the United States Military Academy, and there was Jack Spates was the assistant coach back then, and he recruited me to go there. And I think I probably went for a lot of the wrong reasons. That I went to a public school, but there was a lot of my friends were smart, and a lot of them were they weren't extremely wealthy, but they had money, and they all went to like very impressive, like Ivy League or East Coast schools, and really, really good schools. And, I was wrestling, and I was also a procrastinator, and I did nothing, literally nothing, until the end of the state tournament. When I got done my senior year, I did nothing as far as like applying for college. I think I was lazy. I didn't want to write essays or stuff like that, which is horrible to think about. Like, yeah, it's probably just lazy. And, I got a call from I didn't get recruited by a ton of places, but Jack was calling me a lot. And I was like, well, you guys are going to these prestigious East Coast schools. That nobody's going to beat me prestige wise with the United States Military Academy. What I didn't take in consideration is, it's the Army. So,
right.
So yeah, I went there, and I was there for a year. I stayed my whole plebe year, and I did wrestle. Ed Steers was the head coach there. Great guy. And I was hurt a good amount of it. I was like, I had a back problem, and they kind of kept me out of wrestling for a while. And then in the spring, I started wrestling a lot more, and started doing some freestyle stuff, and really kind of fell back in love with wrestling. And, I really didn't know if I was going to quit until like the last day, and I was always getting yelled at, not for anything like horrible, but I was always in trouble, and they'd have you march back and forth on this place called the Area when you're on Saturday mornings. And I remember we had like this, I was like, okay, plebe year's over, because it's rough, man. It is not fun.
I can't imagine. I don't want to know.
Yeah, it's and so I was like, we went to some meeting, and they were like, okay, you guys are going to go home. You're going to get your first, basically leave, extended leave for the summer. You go home for a month. And then when you get back, you're going to be going to this, this thing where you're going to learn to drive tanks and all this stuff. And you got to have your equipment ready. And when you get back to your barracks, we're going to have an equipment check, to make sure you got all your stuff. And I was like marching back. I'm like, man, I lost like all of that stuff, and they're going to yell at me more. And the yelling's never going to stop. And and then I just really was on the way back. I was like, I'm not going to do this, and then, to quit there, like you got to go through, cause I made it through the year where most people, once they get through the first year, they don't quit. I mean, right. There's, and then once you get past the second year, you can't quit. You're in, you owe them time if you
a lot of time, right?
Yeah. So I was I don't know. I just
kind of the fork in the road. Like, all right, am I going to commit?
Yeah. Am I going
to
do this?
long 7 years total? Is that what it is?
Yeah, It's four at school, and then 5 5 active duty after that. And and I kind of felt like, hey man, if you're in the Army for effectively 9 years, you're probably that's your life, you're probably gonna play it out. I'm like, yeah, what I would, and you're an 18-year-old kid, so everything is like fatalistic, or like in 9 years seems like a lot of time. I'm like, if I'm 9 years, that's like half my life. I'll probably just do it for 20 and retire, and that'll be my whole life. And even back then, I think I had sort of an idea that I wanted to be a comedian. I didn't even know what it was, or something in show business. But yeah, so I left, and I came home, and I was lost. I was like, I was thinking maybe I'm gonna go out to LA. I was 18 years. I think I might have been 17 years old at that time. I was like, I'm gonna go out to LA and become a comedian, or I don't know, I'll do something, or and I was kind of lost. And like the day after I got home, the Mizzou wrestling coach showed up with a really nice scholarship offer, and my dad was kind of like, you're gonna do this. He kind of pushed me into it, and and I think I had unfinished business with wrestling too, so I went to Missouri after that. Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned you kind of fell back in love with it too, right? I mean,
yeah, I think
a
I
love-hate
did, man.
thing, right? You kind of
it is, man.
You hate it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So when did comedy come in? Like, were you always, like, growing up, always kind of had something to say guy, or what?
I don't think I was like a smart ass type kid. I was maybe a little bit loud. I was shy until I got to know people, and then I was loud, and I wasn't afraid of public speaking, and I was
Just
at West Point,
right?
I would do impressions of the upperclassmen and stuff and make people laugh. And yeah, I think when I was in high school, I ran for like student council president, just so I could give a speech, or it was student council something, and just so I could get up in front of people and give a speech. And then I won that office, and I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to try to make people laugh on stage. Eventually the guy was like, hey, you don't really want to do this, do you? I'm like, no, man, I don't. I just wanted to make people laugh.
So did you decline then? You won, but
yeah, I did. I turned in my turned over my office treasurer or something, who knows. But yeah, and then when I was at Mizzou, some of the guys, there was a comedy club in town, and one of the older guys on the team, Craig Martin, who was an All-American, who's a senior when I was a freshman. And Craig worked at he was a bartender at this comedy club, in the summers, and they had some comedy contest, and he signed me up for it my freshman year. And I
really?
won it. Yeah. All the wrestling guys came out, and so it was. I did it off and on in college, but I was mostly, it was like 99% wrestling. I don't know, probably about 75% wrestling. 20% school and 5% comedy is,
So it's always been somewhat of your life, right? I mean, if you're doing it in college, you must have been, pretty
comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do it with any regularity. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just getting up there and acting like a jackass, really. I would hate to see what I did.
You ever look back at some of the stuff you did? Or I guess that's how you improve, right? Though you look back at.
I look back. The writing process for me is I look back at every show, but I look back like a day ago, 2 days ago, a week ago, not 10, 20, 30 years ago. I don't want to see that, and every now and then, like last night, every now and then, I got stuff all over the internet, and I'll check, every now and then I'll look and see, and I'll catch myself, or I get played on satellite radio a lot of times. So I'll be scanning satellite radio, and I'll hear myself and be like, all right, it's not terrible. But yeah, it's the last thing I want to hear is myself. So I actually enjoy the process now, the writing process of like, I had some shows last week, and I'll sit down today or tomorrow and just sit down and listen to all those sets. And then, at that point, it's more for it's technical. It's like, okay, I got to get rid of that word. I got to add that, or that might be another idea.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was like. What's your process of creating new material, of new content? What do you just kind of block it off, or it just comes up and you jot it down, and then you.
I think there's a little of both. You know, I think for me, to come out to really put out a lot of material, and that's, you know, I would like to put out quite a bit of material and continually write, is you got to have pen to the paper. You can't just rely on what you inspiration during the day. So I do like some journaling in the morning. I do a lot of listening to my act. I have a few writing exercises where I just like, okay, these 4 topics are close. There's something here. I don't know if it's really hard to figure out what's funny. It's so, if you can start with what's interesting or what like interrupted the continuum of the day, a lot of times you can sort of twist that into something that's funny. So I'll just start with, hey, this idea, and then I'll just kind of go, just brainstorm, be like, and you know, it's like, don't try to make this the greatest joke in the world. Just try to make it 2% more relatable or 2% funnier. And, you know, sometimes if you do that over time, you find something, you find some seam, and then, you know, you try it on stage, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're onto something, and I know now, I'm pretty good about, like, I'll say something, and that's the best feeling in the world. It's like learning a new technique. It's very similar to, like, you learn a new technique. I remember in high school, there's a junior college real close to me. It's called Merrimack Junior College. It doesn't have wrestling anymore, but it was a 2 or 3 miles from my house, and I would go up there in the spring and the summer. And I was up there every night, or you know, he'd open it up, and I'd work out, and they showed me like a cheap tilt, you know, one summer. I think it was like the summer after my sophomore year. You know, I'm just fooling around with it. I didn't think, you know, it was like, you know, when you're kind of screwing around, and it wasn't structured practice, and like just doing this for fun.
Right.
And then in high school that year, you know, you get bored in practice at the end, you know, or when you're wrestling somebody not that good, and be like, I'm going to try this dumb move that I learned. And then like, there's just some weird transition that happens where it's like, oh man, I just did that in a regular match, you know, like, and I did that. And then it's like, I just did that, and I needed to do it. And then, you know, and that year I won the state, and I wasn't, there's a guy that I think that people thought were going to beat me, and I tilted that guy like 9 times, man, you know, with that cheap tilt. So it's the same feeling to me with writing comedy. It's like, this idea is silly or whatever, but why not try it? You know, or I'm bored. It's at the end of the show, or it's in the middle of the show. I got to do something. I'm sick of this act, and you just try it, and then you like something sticks, and you know, and people in the audience would be like, well, that's probably not his best joke, or, you know, and I'm like, no, that was the most beautiful moment of that show. Cause I can tell you, it didn't work perfect there, but I know there's something there. I know there's something I can build on there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's definitely. I understand what you're saying, because it's, you know, you work on something, then it pays off. It's like, oh, you know, it means something more, right? When you
yeah. And I think maybe with wrestling, I don't know. I mean, I look back, I listen to so many wrestling podcasts, and I listen to guys interviewed, and I know some of those guys, and I'm really inspired by them. And I'm like, I would have done it so differently if I had to do it over again. I would have kept, I think I didn't, my intellectual curiosity waned a little bit in college, you know, where I wasn't always looking for a new technique. I was just like, I got to just get through practice, man. This is brutal. And I'm real good at these, good at these 9 techniques, or, you know, and I'm not doing anything new. You know, I just got to do this. And, you know, it became too routine. And God, if I would have just maybe kept learning, you know.
Hey, you still finish on the podium. That's, you know, a heck of an accomplishment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm real proud of that. Yeah, because it was, I think I got my sophomore year. I was 2 matches away. My junior year, I lost in the blood round. In my senior year, I placed. And,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
pretty cool. So, coming out of college, you didn't get into comedy right away, right? You're slinging Pringles or something like that.
Oh yeah.
How'd that come about, or what kind of shit?
Yeah,
you know,
that was
that like
interesting. Like, you know, after college, and I didn't. think I graduated a year, in like 4 years, and then I stayed for a 5th year because I had used my redshirt year at West Point, and
Gotcha.
I thought I had a shot at doing something, and I was like kind of taking grad school classes, not seriously, and I got it again. I got done with I got off the podium and like I haven't considered. I wonder if a lot of wrestlers are like this because I'm like I haven't thought at all about what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just want to. This tournament is what I've been
Right, Johnny.
thinking about for the last 18 years. Like this is the thing, and it's not that I didn't. I did fine in school. I did it because like, I don't want to get yelled at by my dad or whatever, as I just knew that you need to do well in school. I didn't do it because I was like, I'm going to do this so I can turn it into a career. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do comedy, and this girl broke up with me, man, like right around nationals, my senior year, this girl. And she was, it really hurt, and so I was in a weird place anyways. And I was like, I'm going to move to Chicago and do comedy. And I was there for like 2 weeks, and I was living with my buddy who went to art school there. And, man, I just flipped out. Like one, I think it was the girl. Two, I had so much structure in my life
change. Right. Johnny,
you have that thing in front of you. You have practice in front of you every day. You have the next tournament in front of you.
Right. I need to go to that carrot.
Always there. And it wasn't there. And I, if I were to go back, I'd be like, yeah, it was, just switch it to comedy, but I couldn't. And I just was nervous about everything. And I didn't have any money. And I just sort of freaked out. And I moved back. After just a few weeks, I moved back to St. Louis and stayed with my parents, and I started interviewing, and I got a job at this company called Procter Gamble. And I worked there. They sent me to Houston, Texas. I was there for 5 years, and then they transferred me to Cincinnati, and I was there for 5 years. Off and on during that time, I was doing comedy, but
cool.
I would kind of go back and forth. I wish I could tell you, like, I just was like, comedy is my dream, and I'm going to do it. I would be like, do it. And then I'll be like, no, what are you doing? You need to have a family, do the regular thing. You're doing well. I was doing well at the job. I was making a lot of money and getting promoted. And then, something clicked when I was in Cincinnati. The Houston, I was like off and on. Once I got to Cincinnati, I was doing it fairly regularly. I might've had one freak out where I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But those last 3 years, I was doing it quite a bit, and I started getting better. And I started, not really.
Kind of.
Yeah, those first several years of comedy, you're just worried about, having a horribly embarrassing experience. You're just worried about it going terrible. And then you get to a certain point and you're like, it's going to go well. I know it's going to almost always go well. So now you start thinking about, what do I want to say? It's like, I'm going to win most of the wrestling matches. Now, how can I invent new technique, and how can I get,
what's the worst going to happen, right? I'm going to lose a match, or I'm going to bomb on stage. If that's the worst thing that can happen, right? Then
well, the bombing is terrible. It's like most comics, you just live in fear of bombing for a while. Some guys probably don't have that, but I did, because it's not fun. So you're just always worried about just making the audience laugh. And then you get to a certain point, and you're like, they're going to laugh. I'm good enough. I know enough tricks. I know I've got good material. They're going to laugh. Now, what can I actually say that maybe is different or original or hasn't been said before?
So I ask some of the guys when they jump on the podcast, what's their, these youngsters nowadays, right? Everything's on YouTube, and some guys don't have many matches on YouTube. Do you have a favorite clip? Not necessarily a match, but do you have a favorite, bit that you kind of, if no one's seen any of your content?
Oh yeah, man.
What's your favorite?
No, it's a sort of a loaded question, because it's like the favorite joke that I have is probably whatever the newest one is.
Okay.
Like whatever one is just starting to work. As far as like what's out there on the internet, probably there's 2 hours of material that are pretty, there's a dry bar special that's got a lot of views. And then there's a Amazon Prime special it's on YouTube too. It's called Where the Field Corn Grows. And both those, I'm pretty proud of, and it's funny. There's only a little bit of wrestling material in both those. I did so much of the wrestling material early on in my career. The bit that did this bit called Flute Man, which is about, being in high school and wrestling on the team and playing the clarinet in the band. And that bit like kind of launched my career, like that bit.
Okay.
Yeah. It got me into the Montreal Comedy Festival. I did it on TV early. The biggest thing is I did it on this radio show, the Bob and Tom radio show, which is, syndicated all over the country. And it just somehow their audience loved it. And so that thing just sort of kind of, it opened a lot of doors for me. So that bit is, it's old. So is it my favorite bit? No. Cause I've said it, but if you come to a show 99% of the time, I'll do it at the end of the show just cause I feel like I should. Cause a lot of people came just to see that bit. But,
gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, if people are like, well, it's funny because people always do like, well, describe your comedy to me. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like,
but it's clean though. For those that don't know, right? It's clean comedy, right?
Yeah, it's
not
clean.
Not many comics can do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably more rare. There's, and I don't, people always kind of get hung up on that. Like, it was sort of more of a, it certainly wasn't a moral choice. It was more of a strategic choice because I was pretty clean anyway. If you listen to me, 10 years ago, especially, it's not clean. It's not like filthy, but there's a lot of profanity in there. And usually when I'm doing some character, sometimes, a wrestling coach, but, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, I started wanting to do more like late night TV, and at the time you needed to be clean to do that. And I was always fairly clean. I just kept getting cleaner and cleaner. And then actually a friend of mine who works at Sirius Radio, and he was like, hey man, you're way too close to being like totally clean to not be totally clean. So just do it. So if you see anything that I put out in the last, 5-6 years, it's clean. It's I would say close to G-rated, which unfortunately some people are like, well, that's lame. And I promise it's not. Like, you won't think that it's not like Christian comedy or something. It's just yeah, it is. If you came to a club, any given night, and you're completely offended by any swear word, I would say don't come, because like you may hear it. Like I sort of do reserve that right in a live show. Right. Now, if it's at a corporation, or sometimes I'll do shows when there's kids in the audience, or if it's a certain situation, I can be totally clean. But if it's a nightclub and there's adults there that are drinking, I'm like, right. I may let it's not many, but I may let one fly just for fun,
Gotcha. So, not even talking COVID, you've seen kind of the comedy scene probably change, right? Now it's special, the whole specials you talked about, you have, right? And the comedy probably has changed over your court, right? The whole scene probably a little bit. Or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and there's people that probably pay a lot more attention to that than I do. Comedians like there's a different. The clubs are bigger. There's a lot of like YouTuber people that are famous, and they can sell out the clubs.
Especially because COVID, right? Probably a lot of people doing that.
It was before COVID. Like, people YouTube's such a sensation, and kids love that stuff so much. TV credits aren't quite as big as they used to be. And there's all kinds of exciting new avenues. There's Sirius comedy wasn't on Sirius Radio 15 years ago. There was no Sirius Radio. So now it's like a ton I get played on there probably 7-8 clips a day. So it's like all these, Pandora, Sirius, dry bar comedy. There's all these exciting new ways for people to find you, which is cool. But yeah, I don't pay a ton of attention to, I just sort of like, hey, it's still about what do you think is interesting or different, and how do you make that into something that's funny? And how eventually you're going to get in front of an audience and try to explain that to them, and hopefully they'll laugh at it. Hopefully they'll see what you see, and they'll laugh at it.
Right.
So I probably don't have my eyes open enough to like the landscape of it. I'm more, probably a little more tactical than strategic. I'm just like, this is what if I wake up every morning and I write and I listen to the show from the night before and I keep my eyes open, and get on stage a lot, that's about what I want to do. And hopefully things will work out.
Good things will happen, right? So, so I was gonna ask. So I was like, when you're preparing for a special, what goes into that, right? Because that's probably different than, traveling and doing your tour, right?
Well, I mean, not really. It's,
Okay.
I think that the tour is what prepares you
Right.
for a special. And, um, if I can put out like a new hour of material, seems to take about 4 years to really get it right.
Oh wow.
This time I feel like it might take 3. Like, I think I might shoot something next summer. Like, I'm coming up. It's the timing is a little condensed. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting better. Maybe I just have I'll have a lot of ideas, or I just hit gold. But I feel like I'm on the cusp right now. Like, I feel like I'm in about 45 minutes. It's strong. I got other ideas, and I see. So, the way to get that right is just get it out on the road. Get it into the comedy clubs. I do see, some corporate shows, which are more, I'm good at it. It's, I used to work in corporate America. You have to be clean. I know kind of what to say, what not to say. And I know I'm edgy enough to make them laugh, but I know what line not to cross. And those are lucrative. Those I don't really, that's not going to prepare me for a special. What prepares me for a special is, this week I'm going to Zany's in Chicago, and it's, 5 or 6 shows in a row. And then,
Oh wow.
so, and then like I've already got sort of the first quarter of 2022 where I'm in a club every week, I feel like, okay, by the end of that quarter, I should have a pretty good idea what I want to do on the next hour. You can't force it. But I think, and it's just what I was telling you. It's just basically keep your eyes open. Comedy is about noticing your surroundings a lot, write a lot, listen to your act, get on stage a lot.
That's cool. Do you have a
And
favorite?
I think it's somewhat like, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good, man.
I think it's somewhat like wrestling where, at some point you prepare, but once you're on stage, you let your instincts take over.
Very strong suit and what to stay away from and
Yeah.
what to do, right? Yeah. Do you have a favorite city that you like to visit, or is there certain cities you like to go to?
Yeah, man, sometimes it has more to do with the club than the city,
Right.
the actual
Okay.
city. But I like St. Louis where I live. That club, I love that week. That's a fun week of the year. Columbus, Ohio has a great club and great fan base. Austin, Texas is pretty awesome. Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa. Pittsburgh's been a really, really great city for me.
I'm going there in a couple weeks.
Are you? Yeah, it's fantastic, man. Yeah, there's a radio station there called DVE that they have a lot of fans, and their fans been really good to me over the years. So.
Oh, cool. All right, Greg. You anything else for the listeners?
No, it's just it's kind of working the road can be kind of a lonely deal sometimes, I guess. You're out and about, and in these over the last 10, 15 years with all the wrestling content online, you can watch matches. I can watch all of Missouri's matches. I can listen to podcasts like this. I can hear some of the guys that I've been fans of forever be interviewed. It's kind of a really cool time to be a wrestling fan.
Right. No, definitely. Yeah. I agree. So you still follow Mizzou pretty closely then?
Yeah. I did a show in Columbia on this past Friday night. And,
sweet.
Yeah. And Brian Smith and I are pretty close friends, and him and his wife, Denise, came to the show, and Tyrell Todd came out, and I've stayed real close to the program, and my coach, Wes Roper's, he and Brian were both at when I taped my last special.
Oh, that's sweet.
And Denise. Yeah. And Becky, his wife. And man, I've been lucky that most places I go to do a show, somebody will come up after and they'll be like, yeah, I wrestled at so-and-so, or, and I love that part of it, man. I love it. Because sometimes it's weird when they're like, it's funny. Like if you see someone that comes up, and I try to be, nice to people, but you have a bunch of people after the show want to talk to you, and some people like want to talk comedy, and sometimes I'll do it, but I'll do it more out of like, I need to do this. And then somebody will come up and just start talking about like wrestling. And I'll sit there for an hour and talk to them about, about, who's good this year or the next duel or that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah. It's, great. I'm excited for this season, NCAA's, even, obviously here in Ohio, it's going to be,
is it in
Detroit?
Oh, it's in Detroit. Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah, I'm fired up, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a great season. There's already all kinds of storylines, and selfishly, Missouri's looks like they're going to be good for the next 3 or 4 years. That they have basically the same lineup for the next 3 years. And they got some really good guys there. So
giving us other guys in the MAC a chance too now.
MAC
might open, yeah. So
the MAC's. I don't know what is going to go down. It's funny. Missouri was clawing like crazy to get back in the Big 12, and they finally did, which I think is exciting. And then you get the news that Oklahoma and Texas are probably going to leave the Big 12. So is the Big 12 even going to exist in a couple of years? So maybe there's going to be a major realignment of wrestling conferences.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, right? I mean,
yeah,
you got to think, right, with NIL and all these, financial models changing. It's something's has to
that
get.
that'll be interesting. NIL, that's
right.
That should be really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a double-edged sword, but we'll see. I'm glad.
So do I. I mean, on one hand, it's like, especially the football and basketball, it's like these guys, millions have been made off of them and they saw none of it. I get that.
Right. They got to pay them something, but wrestling's kind of the low end of the.
It is, but I could see a kid in Iowa, like
essentially,
making I mean, I could see it in any team where some local business is going to want to be part of that. But I just wonder what the dynamic between that guy and his teammates is, or that guy and his coach is.
Yeah, they start making more than the coach.
In wrestling, I think there's a little bit of humility that just is inherent in wrestling because of the beating that you take every day. You
can get humbled real quick.
Yeah. But I do think there's got to be some athlete. It's like coach is like, hey, you need to run those stairs, and be like, no, man, I make $250,000. I'm not running anywhere. Well, you got to run those stairs. All right. Well, I'm going to transfer, I just wonder.
I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. You know what? This guy at this other school said I didn't need to run stairs, so I'm transferring. Yeah. And so I think it's going to be, like you said, double-edged sword, but maybe it'll.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe it'll be.
You never know, right? I don't feel like we don't know. We don't know yet, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's I'm excited for the the Worlds too, right? Olympics,
Yeah,
Olympics,
man.
Worlds went great.
I don't know how we get beat this year at Worlds. I mean, you add 4 weight classes, and we're tough in all of them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's. I had a lot of fun watching the Olympics. That was really cool.
Do you get to go to much wrestling with your schedule, or do you get
no, not a ton,
or Big 12?
I hit NCAA's maybe every 3-4 years. We've been fortunate because they've been in St. Louis a lot. So this year I decide I'll make some duels just because they happen. If it's a Friday or Saturday, during wrestling season, almost always I'm working.
Right.
Now every now and then it's like, I'm working in Des Moines, and there's, Missouri's wrestling Iowa State that day. So I'll just drive over to Ames, see the match, and come back. Or, I went and watched an Iowa State match before because I just was in the neighborhood. So I get to see some of that stuff. For me to, especially after having not worked a lot in 2020, I'm not taking a lot of weekends off, but I did set aside. So far, I blocked off that first weekend of March. I want to go to the Big 12s. I'm not going to be able to make it up to Michigan this year for NCAA's. I already booked a gig that week, but me and my dad are going to go to the Big 12 just because I haven't seen that in forever, and I think it'll be pretty cool.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You get to do that with your dad. That's
Yeah, man. We've
really
had a lot of fun. We argue about stuff all the time. It's like ridiculous. It's like supposed to be having fun, and we're just arguing over it.
you do like a
wrestling.
pick 'em or something, or gotta
No, just we don't necessarily see the sport the same way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty
But it's pretty cool. I get to do that with him, man. It's really cool. So
That's all. Yeah, my brothers and dad, they usually go to NCAAs every year. I'm here in Ohio, run the junior high state series. I always miss out. They're
right.
going to be
Oh yeah, that's
pictures.
right around the same time.
Yeah, so they're always like, "Hey, this is what's going on." I'm like, "Yeah, rub it
Yeah.
in. Thanks, guys."
Yeah,
Hope to catch
it's
clips of
awesome.
it. Yeah,
But you know what though, man? Well, you're running a tournament, so but I mean, it's kind of fun sometimes to set up, 5 TV screens or whatever and watch the NCAAs
yeah,
that way. That's kind of cool sometimes too.
yeah. We usually go to dinner to do the finals. A group of us. So at least I'm not trying to watch from my phone or something.
Right.
It works out the way. All right, we're gonna go watch. Watch the finals here, and
Yeah.
big screen TV somewhere. So it usually works out. But those like semis match and the blood round,
Semis and the quarters. And
quarters.
quarters. That semi round, that Friday night round is with the blood round and the It's insane, man. It's insane.
So yeah, pretty cool. Well, where can those that don't know you, living under a rock, where can they find you, man? Where can they?
I got a website. It's gregwarrencomedy.com. And I'll probably be doing a show somewhere around you in the next 6 months. Or you could, like I said, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube to check out. There's a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. Stick on here. We'll chat a little bit more here, but I appreciate it, Greg.
Yeah, enjoyed talking to you, Jay.